It's often said that the civil rights movement was a major issue for Kennedy. Uh, it's not an issue that's near and dear to his heart. Rather, what's going on, truthfully, is that the civil rights movement has been making so much progress. There's been so much momentum that no president could afford to ignore it. So we have to be careful about determining his true reasoning here. Momentum is going to definitely be achieved as we get into the late 1950s and early 1960s. For example, the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955-56 brings attention to the situation. In 1960, we see sit-ins and basically these segregated lunch counters where black patrons try to get food at the white stations. Ultimately, they're going to be refused and they might get even arrested, but they're trying to make a point. You have freedom riders in 1961, where black Americans demand to ride and be integrated in waiting rooms of bus stations. Everywhere they went, of course, there's going to be violence. The worst kind of violence happens in Alabama. For example, in Anniston, Alabama, a mob will attack a bus that has freedom riders on it. They will basically slash its tires. And as the bus cripples along out just outside the town, this mob who is following behind it in cars will go and firebomb the bus. And as the bus is burning and the people are inside are trying to get out, the mob keeps the doors closed. It's only when an undercover FBI agent really brandishes his gun does anybody actually do anything, and the door is open. But nevertheless, the riders are viciously beaten. We also see some more violence in Birmingham, Alabama, with kind of the same thing. But nevertheless, it's under Kennedy that we see even more racial integration of schools, right? But there's also going to be resistance towards it. For example, in 1962, the University of Mississippi is integrated, and the University of Mississippi was the site of rioting during desegregation, particularly when one black student tried to enroll in the school and become the university's first African-American student. And we see violence, we see thousands of students surrounding the area and swarm the campus. Thus, by the time you get into 1963, the Kennedy administration has to work on a bill for civil rights. This bill would outlaw all discrimination in public places and in hiring according to race. The act that they would work to pass would be the most important civil rights act in the history of the United States. Unfortunately for Kennedy, it doesn't pass while he's president of the United States. We'll have to come back to it when we get to 1964. You also have Martin Luther King's March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. He's going to make a major address in front of the Lincoln Memorial called the I Have a Dream speech, where basically he dreams of a country that judges people not on the color of their skin, but the basis of their character. These are some of the things that JFK has to deal with. So it's not necessarily something that he campaigns on and he's like, man, I really need to get this done because I'm really interested in it. It's more about, I'm watching what's going on. I see all of this momentum happening. This is something that we can no longer ignore, and we have to get it done sooner rather than later.